Welcome to Midweek, Experiments in Faithfulness. This is a weekly program where we learn and grow with each other in community. My name is Brent, and I am the Program and Engagement Manager here at Beacon Hill Friends House. We are a Quaker center for learning right in the heart of downtown Boston. We're home to Beacon Hill Friends Meeting, and we're also a residential community of about 20 people. This is a series where we're learning about the Enneagram. If you're not familiar with it, you can check out the overview I did called Why We Clash, Why We Click, where I gave a summary of all 9 Enneagram types. Since then, every 2 weeks, we've been taking a closer look at one Enneagram type at a time, looking at exactly what makes each one amazing, unique, and absolutely crucial in the world. Tonight, we're going to take a deep dive into the Enneagram Type 9, the Peacemaker. Type 9s are fueled by a deep desire for harmony, inner calm, and avoiding conflict. But what's really going on beneath the surface? We'll explore the incredible strengths that make Type 9s inclusive, accepting, and natural mediators, as well as their challenges with self-assertion, procrastination, and maintaining their own priorities amidst the needs of others. Whether you're a Type 9 yourself, love someone who is, or just want to better understand this unique personality type, this session will leave you with insights and tools to appreciate their perspective and support their journey. Let's meet the Peacemaker, the mediator, the anchor, the unifier, the quiet center in a chaotic world. Let's meet the Enneagram Type 9. Some people don't walk into a room looking to be the loudest voice. They're listening for the undercurrents, the tension that no one names, the needs that no one speaks, the harmony that's just out of reach. That is the soul of a Type 9. They're not trying to dominate the conversation or take charge of the room. 9s move through the world with a quiet steadiness that says, "You're safe with me." It's a special kind of strength, one that can absorb tension, hold space, and keep the peace in places where it might otherwise fall apart. They're easygoing on the outside, but inside there's a world of complexity. Thoughts, dreams, instincts, emotions, all woven together into something steady and sacred. Some people overlook the 9, and truthfully, the 9 often lets them. Not because they don't matter, but because they're so good at letting everyone else matter more. But under all of that go with the flow energy is a deep well of knowing. 9s know what it means to make room for others. But when they start making room for themselves, just watch out. That's when they truly wake up to themselves and the value that they bring to the table. 9s value peace, deep, soulful peace, the kind that makes healing possible for everyone around them. And tonight we're going to explore what it means to live as a peacemaker, how they merge, how they disappear, and how they awaken to their own presence and power. You don't have to be calm or agreeable to relate to a 9. You just have to know the part of you that's tired of the noise and ready to come home to yourself. Type 9s are some of the most grounded and gentle people you'll meet. They have a calm presence that can ease tension just by walking into a room. Type 9s have a gift for making the world feel less chaotic. They bring steadiness where there's stress, warmth where there's worry, and a grounded presence that reminds people to breathe. 9s create space for others to be themselves without judgment or pressure. They have an incredible ability to see many sides of a situation and to bring people together. They're so good at this, in fact, that of all the Enneagram types, 9s can be the most challenging to identify. The 9 isn't just easygoing or neutral. They are adaptive to the point of invisibility, even to themselves. They relate so well with others that they end up looking like every type on the Enneagram, except the nine. They absorb other people's opinions, priorities, even personality traits. They merge with the energy around them, often without even realizing that they're doing it. This means that they often score high on multiple types in assessments. And when they read about other types, they see themselves in almost all of them. Because nines are so good at going along with the flow, they often mistake that fluidity for clarity. But there's a difference between recognizing yourself in someone and becoming that other person. Nines care deeply about people, about peace, about creating a sense of belonging. And when they're tuned in to their own truth, their quiet influence can move mountains. This type reminds us that power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it hums softly beneath the surface, steady and sure. Let's explore what it means to live from that deep well of inner peace and to remember that choosing harmony is not weakness, it's wisdom. Let's take a moment to celebrate the wonderfully weird quirks of the Type 9, because beneath that calm exterior is a complex system of soft resistance, psychic weather forecasting, and spiritual level avoidance. They might accidentally agree with three opposing viewpoints in one conversation because they genuinely understand all sides. It's diplomacy at its finest. They're known to disappear mid conflict to reappear with snacks. No resolution, but suddenly you're holding a granola bar and feeling slightly better. If left unsupervised, they will turn conflict into a group nap. Their vibe is so calm, it exhausts the urgency right out of the room. They say, I'm good with whatever. And brace yourself, they actually mean it until they don't. But they'll probably tell you eventually. I mean, after beating around the bush for about a month. They hold five opinions at once and are chill about all of them. Debating feels exhausting. Coexisting is where the nine lives. They're a magnet for stray animals, tired people, and tangled earbuds. Listen, if it's lost, worn out, frail, fragile, or overwhelmed, it just finds the nine. They're low key psychic when it comes to moods. They can walk into a room and instantly know who cried in the bathroom earlier, even if no one else noticed the shift in air pressure. And finally, they will procrastinate on tasks, on decisions, on things that are 95% done, but somehow still untouched 3 months later. Because getting started might create momentum, and momentum might lead to something being required of them, or learning a new system, which is exhausting and requires a full Netflix binge first. These quirks aren't flaws, they're features. Each one a clue to the nine's quiet brilliance and the internal complexity they carry behind that peaceful smile. At the heart of a type 9 is a longing for peace. Not just the kind that avoids conflict, but the kind that brings everything into right relationship. Nines want to feel deeply connected to themselves, to the people around them, and often to something greater, whether that's God, the cosmos, source, or the sacred rhythm of the universe. Many nines carry a quiet yearning for spiritual alignment, an inner sense that they are part of something whole, something harmonious, something deeply good. They feel most alive when things feel settled, when they're helping create unity, soothing tension, or simply resting in a moment that feels like home. But here's the thing: peace isn't just something that they maintain in a world around them, it's something they're called to cultivate within. And that takes courage because it means honoring their own needs and desires just as much as they honor others. The nine's motivation isn't to avoid life, it's to move through it with steadiness, presence, and trust. When they tune in to that inner knowing, when they align with both their true self and the larger flow of existence, they become not just peaceful, but powerful. For the nine, wholeness isn't just a nice idea, it's the goal. And deep down, they know when they're in alignment with themselves, they help bring the rest of us back into alignment too. While nines may look calm and easygoing on the outside, their inner world is often shaped by subtle, powerful fears. At the top of the list, conflict. Not just loud arguments, but emotional tension, relational disconnection, the feeling that something isn't quite right between them and someone they care about. Nines often fear that if they assert themselves too strongly, if they speak up, take a stand, create waves, they'll somehow threaten the harmony that they work so hard to preserve. So instead, they just go along. They keep the peace, they blend in. But under that surface harmony is another fear that they don't matter, that their presence is optional, that their voice is just background noise in a world full of louder, more demanding energies. When those fears take over, nines may check out emotionally, mentally, even physically. They might distract themselves with comfort, routine, or anything that lets them avoid the discomfort of tension. But avoidance doesn't give them what they really want. Connection does. And not just connection to others, but connection to their own desires, opinions, and spiritual aliveness. The truth is, the nine's presence does matter. Their voice is essential, and the world doesn't need them to disappear. It needs them to fully awaken. Nines have a way of making people feel safe. They're often the friend everyone turns to in a crisis. They might not have all the answers, but they have the kind of presence that says, "You're okay, we'll figure it out." Their strengths are often quite powerful. They're empathetic, emotionally aware, and remarkably good at seeing things from other people's perspectives. They rarely rush to judgment and tend to create a calm, welcoming environment wherever they go. They're loyal, dependable, and have an internal steadiness that others naturally lean on. But that same calmness can come with some challenges. Nines often struggle to assert their own needs and opinions, especially if doing so might cause friction. Instead, they may avoid conflict altogether or merge with the people around them, which means taking on other people's preferences while losing touch with their own. They can also struggle with inertia. Look, once they're in motion, they're steady and reliable. But getting started, especially on something that feels emotionally charged or high stakes, can feel like climbing a mountain. And when they feel overwhelmed or disconnected from themselves, they may appear completely checked out. Because tuning out can feel safer than facing tension head on. The invitation for nine is not to become someone louder or more forceful. It's to trust that their inner presence is powerful as is. Their opinions are valid. Their voice matters. And when they show up fully without shrinking or merging, the rest of us feel a little more whole as well. When a nine loves you, it's like being wrapped in something timeless, steady, calm, and deeply safe. Their love isn't flashy or dramatic. It's felt in the quiet moments, the deep listening, the way they create space for your soul to breathe. Their love language is presence, peace, being with you in a way that says, "You matter. I'm here. We're okay." And for many nines, love isn't just about comfort, it's about alignment with the cosmos, with God, with something bigger than the two of you. They often see connection through a spiritual lens, as if their relationship is part of a larger design. When it feels right, it doesn't just feel emotionally good, it feels sacred, like coming home to a place they've been trying to return to their whole life. But that deep longing for peace and unity can also make them hesitant to fully assert themselves. They might avoid conflict, holding back opinions, or merge too much with a partner's needs, all in an effort to preserve the sense of harmony that they want. At the core, nines fear disconnection, not just being left, but being separate emotionally, spiritually, energetically. And that fear can make them downplay their own desires, not out of manipulation, but out of a deep hope that staying easy to be with will keep them close to what and who they love. But the truth is, real intimacy comes when the nine begins to trust that they can speak up and still be loved, that their presence, preferences, and even their anger have a place in the relationship. Because when a nine brings their full self to love, not just their gentleness, but their truth, the relationship doesn't just feel peaceful, it feels divine, anchored, alive, like something the stars conspired to create. What makes nines angry? Here's the thing about nines: many of them don't think they get angry, but they absolutely do. It just doesn't always show up in the traditional way. Nines tend to suppress their anger, often for so long that they barely register it themselves. But underneath the surface, it's there. And when it finally emerges, it's usually been simmering for a long time. But what makes nines angry? Well, feeling ignored, for one thing, or being talked over, having their contributions dismissed or their needs minimized. They may not react right away, but it builds. They also get angry when they feel pushed, pressured, or rushed. Nines have their own internal rhythm, and when someone steamrolls that, especially without trying to understand where they're coming from, it can trigger deep frustrations, even if they don't show it. Prolonged tension or open conflict can wear them down, especially if it feels like no one's making an effort to restore the peace. And being taken for granted, that's a slow burn. Nines give a lot: time, presence, emotional labor, and they do it willingly. But when that goes unacknowledged, it stings. They also bristle when others speak for them or assume their beliefs, especially if they've been silent. Just because they didn't correct you doesn't mean that you got it right. And then there's the kind of disruption that feels unnecessary. Someone stirring the pot or creating drama or throwing off the energy of a space that they worked hard to keep peaceful. That can make a nine feel like retreating. Or if they've hit their limit, it can result in a rare but fiery outburst. Nines may look calm on the surface, but they're not immune to anger. So, what do nines do when they're angry? When nines get angry, you might not know it at first. They're not the type to explode or confront like the eight. Instead, their anger tends to go underground, quiet, slow burning, and hard to spot. They may pull back emotionally or go silent altogether. They might start forgetting things, missing deadlines, or dragging their feet as a subtle protest against something that they can't bring themselves to say out loud. Their go to move is disappearing emotionally while saying, it's fine, when it's very much not fine. And when they do express their anger, it's often passive aggressive, like neglecting the thing that you care about the most without directly attacking it. It's a form of resistance that avoids confrontation while still sending a message, even if they deny it's a message at all. Now, let's pause for a second so I can explain something that we haven't really talked about in this series, but it's important to mention here. In the Enneagram, there are three numbers that we call anchors. These are the 3, the 6, and the 9. But why are they called anchors and what are they anchoring? Well, they each sit in the middle of what we call an intelligence center. An intelligence center is the part of you that processes experience through a primary lens, thinking with the head, feeling with the heart, or doing with the body, or what they call the gut. We don't have time to get into a lot of detail here, but let's just say that in the Enneagram, each type is rooted in one of these centers. And that shapes how you interpret the world, make decisions, and respond to stress. And each of those centers has a core type that anchors the triad. The 3 anchors the heart triad, the 6 anchors the head triad, and the 9 anchors the gut triad. But here's the twist. These core types tend to be asleep to the very thing they're anchoring. They're driven by it, but often disconnected from it. In other words, they don't pay any attention to it. For instance, the type 3 is the anchor of the heart triad. They're fueled by a deep desire for love and validation, but disconnected from their true feelings. They shapeshift for approval without tuning in to what they actually feel. Type 6 is the anchor for the head triad. They're constantly scanning for safety and certainty, but disconnected from their own inner guidance. They overthink everything, but struggle to trust their own mind. Type 9 is the anchor of the gut triad. They crave harmony and bodily comfort, but they're disconnected from their anger. They go along to get along, ignoring the internal no until it boils over. Each one is like a compass that forgot it's magnetic. So now let's circle back to the 9 and what they do when they get angry. The 9s are the anchor of the body-based types, operating out of their body and gut level knowing. But they often ignore or suppress those signals, especially when they're inconvenient or uncomfortable. That's why 9s frequently experience anger and stress in the body first. They might feel nauseous, shaky, heavy, or like their limbs just won't move. Body is sounding the alarm, but the 9 often sleeps through the alarm. And because 9s are so used to muting their internal signals, they often chalk these physical symptoms up to something else. I'm just hungry, or I'm tired, or I'm just having a weird off kind of day. They don't connect the dots between the anger that they've swallowed and the discomfort that their body is now carrying. It's not that the anger isn't there. It's that it's buried under layers of compliance, distraction, and habit. And eventually, when the weight of all that unspoken resentment gets too heavy, it erupts, not with fireworks, but with something more like a volcanic rumble. Long overdue, hard to contain, and often surprising to everyone, even the 9 themselves. So why do they do this? When a 9 gets overwhelmed or angry, they don't usually charge forward. They pull back emotionally, mentally, and sometimes physically. It's like hiding under the covers in a thunderstorm and waiting for the storm to pass. And honestly, that's what it feels like inside. Like everything's getting too loud, too intense, too complicated. And the safest option is to just check out for a while. They do this because they fear that if they stay in the intensity, they'll lose something important, a relationship, a sense of harmony, their own emotional footing. So instead of confronting the tension, they step back and go quiet. It's not that they don't care, it's that they care so much that they don't want to make things worse. So they retreat, they hide, they wait. But here's the thing, hiding under the covers doesn't actually make the storm go away. The darkness can feel safe, but it can also turn into resentment, disconnection, and missed opportunities to be truly known. That's why the Nine's journey is about learning to come out from under the covers, not to throw punches, but to stand their ground, to stay present in the hard moments, to trust that their truth won't destroy the peace. In fact, it might actually deepen it. Now let's talk about what gives a Nine joy. The joy of a Nine is often quiet, subtle, but profoundly sacred. They come alive in moments when everything is at ease, when no one's arguing, no one's posturing, and nothing needs to be fixed. Just presence, connection, wholeness. It brings them joy to be the one who creates that kind of environment, to make others feel safe, seen, and gently welcomed. When everyone is included and no one is on edge, the Nine just relaxes into something that feels like their natural state of being. But joy isn't just about outer peace, it's also about inner reunion. As we've discussed, Nines often drift from themselves in an effort to stay connected to other people. So when they reconnect, when they remember a dream that they buried or feel a desire return after years of numbness, it is a holy moment, like remembering their own name. And perhaps more than any other type, Nines are wired for transcendence. Many of them experience joy when they feel that unmistakable sense of being in sync with the divine. It might show up as a sudden stillness, a flash of clarity, or a moment where everything just clicks and they know I am part of something bigger and it is good. These breakthroughs don't need fanfare, they just need space. When a Nine feels that kind of soul deep alignment with themselves, with others, with God, that's not just joy, that's home. So, what is a Nine like at work? At work, Nines are often the glue holding things together. They bring a calming presence to meetings, help people feel heard, and tend to lower the collective blood pressure just by existing. They're natural team players, unifying, empathetic, and non judgmental. They're the ones people vent to, problem solve with, or lean on when deadlines get tight. They avoid drama and don't need to be the center of attention. But make no mistake, just because they're low key doesn't mean that they're not influential. In fact, as the anchor of the gut triad, a Nine embodies a ton of instinct and practical intelligence. They often downplay their own ambition, but when they're connected to their values and purpose, they can become incredibly focused, effective, and even, wait for it, decisive. They may not raise their hand first, but when they speak, it's worth listening. Their insights are usually thoughtful, balanced, and grounded in the big picture. Nines don't love unnecessary conflict, but they do value fairness. And when something they care about is at risk, especially harmony, justice, or a sense of shared humanity, they'll stand up and lead, often surprising those who assume that they were too easygoing for that kind of advocacy. At their best, nines bring people together, not just with kindness, but with quiet clarity. They model what it looks like to lead without force and to contribute without needing applause. All right, let's talk about two important parts of the Enneagram that add motion and flexibility to the whole system: wings and arrows. Each of us has a core type, but we're not stuck there. Our type doesn't box us in. We move, shift, react, and grow. And that's exactly what wings and arrows help explain. Wings are like your type's backup dancers. They don't steal the spotlight, but they influence the vibe. They shape your rhythm and style and expression, but you're still the lead. You don't become your wing, but you pick up on their moves. Some people stick with one consistent wing, while others alternate depending on the mood or the moment. Arrows are the directional lines connecting your type to two other types. Some people say that one of your arrow types tends to show up when you're stressed or overwhelmed, and the other emerges when you're feeling confident and on top of your game. Other people, including me, think that you have access to both the positive and negative impulses of your arrow types, regardless of whether you're experiencing stress or strength. Either way, these arrows help explain those moments when you suddenly feel like you're acting a little bit out of character. Understanding wings and arrows lets us stop treating the Enneagram like a static label and turns it into more of a map, one that shows not just where you are, but where you can go when you need a different approach to the situation you're facing. When type 9 moves along their arrow to type 6, their energy shifts from laid back and steady to more alert, questioning, and sometimes anxious. You might notice them become more reactive, suddenly worrying about worst case scenarios or seeking constant reassurance. This can look like second guessing decisions that they were once peaceful about, or becoming more suspicious of people's motives, especially if they feel unsettled or unsafe. In some cases, they may become overly dependent on authority figures or systems that promise security. They want structure, something predictable to hold on to when their inner sense of peace starts to crack. But this arrow also holds some strength for the type 9. At their best, nines moving towards 6 learn to engage more actively with life. They become loyal, thoughtful, and courageous in the face of uncertainty. They ask important questions. They stand up for what's right, not just what's comfortable. So, this shift isn't just a stress response, it's also a growth opportunity. It's where the 9 learns that peace isn't just about tuning out, it's about learning to face what's real, even when it's hard, and discovering that courage can coexist with calm. When nines move along their arrow to the type 3, you can feel their energy pick up. They can shift from calm observation to focused engagement. It's like watching someone slowly rise from the back row and walk confidently onto center stage because they finally remembered that they had something to say. They get clearer on their goals. They become more assertive. They stop waiting for things to just work out and start taking initiative to shape the outcome. At low levels, this shift can bring up performance anxiety. A 9 might start over identifying with productivity or people pleasing in order to maintain connection. But in its healthy expression, this arrow gives the 9 access to action. It helps them see that their presence has impact, that moving toward visibility doesn't mean abandoning peace, it means living with purpose. When a 9 draws from the best part of 3, they stop hiding behind harmony and start creating something with it. They get stuff done, show up fully, and start to realize, look, I don't have to disappear to be loved. I just have to be real. When a nine leans into their eight wing, they bring a little more heat to their usual gentle breeze. This version of the nine is more grounded in the body, more instinctual, assertive, and ready to take action when it counts. They're still peace loving, but they're much more willing to protect that peace with force if necessary. They might speak up more, set firmer boundaries, push back when something doesn't feel right, but they won't yell about it. They just plant their flag and hold the line with a calm that says, you can try me, but you won't move me. The eight wing gives the nine some grit. It helps them stop blending in and start showing up. They become more embodied, less hesitant, and more willing to engage with life's intensity. And while they might still hate conflict, this version of the nine won't avoid it at the cost of their integrity. They'll confront when needed, but in a grounded, measured way that others can trust. This nine doesn't lose their peaceful nature, they fortify it. Peace becomes something they defend, not something they hide inside of. And that makes them an incredibly steady force. Someone who won't just keep the calm, but who will fight for it when it matters. When a nine leans into their one wing, their easygoing nature is balanced by a quiet sense of duty. This version of the nine isn't just seeking calm, they're seeking right alignment internally, morally, spiritually. You'll see their signature gentleness and empathy, but it comes with more structure. They show up a little more organized, a little more intentional, a little more focused on doing what's right, not just what's pleasant. This nine may be more self critical than the eight winged version, holding themselves to quiet internal standards. They want to be good, fair, ethical, and they're willing to hold tension if it means staying in alignment with their values. They're more likely to speak up when something feels unjust, not loudly, but with a kind of calm authority that carries weight. They might be less confrontational than the eight wing nine, but they won't roll over either. They'll stand firm when something matters deeply. The one wing gives the nine a subtle backbone of principle. It helps them move from inertia into purposeful action. This is the nine who tidies the room, not just to feel relaxed, but because inner peace and outer order are deeply connected for them. They don't just want calm, they want clarity. And when they live from both peace and principle, they become a grounding presence with quiet conviction, someone who makes others feel safe, emotionally and ethically. Now, like all Enneagram types, nines come in three instinctual flavors based on which of the three survival instincts is most dominant: self preservation, social, or sexual, also known as one to one. Each subtype has its own way of trying to maintain peace, avoid conflict, and stay connected, both to others and to themselves. So let's break them down. Self preservation nines try to stay at peace by creating comfort, familiarity, and low drama environments. These are your cozy blanket people. They like rhythm, routine, and things that don't rock the boat. They're often incredibly nurturing, quietly stubborn, and slow to anger, but also slow to action. This subtype may seem the most typical nine on the surface: gentle, grounded, and easy to be around. But their resistance can run deep if you try to mess with their comfort zone. Social nines try to stay at peace by blending in and staying connected to the group. They're warm, agreeable, and often put everyone else's needs before their own. They're great in teams because they can see all sides and rarely need the spotlight. But their biggest struggle is losing their sense of identity in the process. They can be so good at going along with everyone else that they forget what they want or even who they are. Sexual or one-to-one nines try to stay at peace by fusing with one other person or cause. They seek deep emotional connection and often prioritize that bond above all else. This subtype can look much more intense than you'd expect from a nine, more passionate, more focused, and even a little obsessive at times. They may lose themselves in the relationship, adapting completely to the other person's vibe in order to keep the closeness intact. Each subtype expresses the nine's longing for peace in a different way, whether through comfort, connection, or closeness. And understanding your subtype can offer powerful insight into where your energy goes and where you might be losing touch with yourself in the process. I want to invite you into a moment of reflection, not just about type 9 as a concept, but about where this energy lives in you. Because we all have the type 9 qualities inside of us. When have you brought calm to a space just by being yourself? That kind of peace isn't passive, it's powerful. It shifts the atmosphere without demanding attention. When have you made others feel safe, seen, and accepted just by holding space for them? That's a sacred gift, one that many people long for and few people naturally offer. When have you chosen peace over performance and still made an impact? Nines remind us that influence doesn't have to come from ego. It can come from presence, from stillness, from choosing what matters most. When have you stayed quiet, not out of wisdom, but because you were afraid of rocking the boat? Where in your life is it time to stop minimizing your voice and trust that your truth belongs? This is the invitation of type 9 to show up fully, to stop minimizing your presence and start trusting that your truth has a place, that your desires aren't disruptions, they're signals. And when you speak them, you don't destroy peace, you deepen it. So wherever the nine shows up in you, honor it, let it ground you, and let it call you forward. Because your presence matters, your voice belongs, and your peace is most powerful when it includes you. So let's talk about the nine in your life, the calm one, the agreeable one, the sure, whatever works for you one. Could that quietness be more than just chill vibes? Could it be their way of holding connection together, of keeping the peace in a world that often feels too loud? Sometimes we assume that if someone's not speaking up, they must not have anything to say. But with a nine, silence is usually full of consideration, conflict avoidance, and a deep hope that things will just work themselves out. So, how can we love our nines better? We can start by making room for them to name what they want, not just what works for everyone else. And when they hesitate, don't fill in the blanks for them. Just wait. Give them space to unfold. And finally, remember that their go with the flow energy might not be indifference. It might be fear of conflict, of separation, of not being received. And the best thing you can offer isn't pressure or persuasion, it's patience, presence, reassurance that they don't have to disappear to stay connected. When we make space for a nine's voice, We don't just get their agreement, we get their heart. And that's when the real peace can begin. So, how can you love your nine? To love a nine well is to love them awake, not just the peaceful parts, not just the calm in the storm, but the opinions that they're scared to voice, the wants that they haven't named yet, the anger that they don't think they're allowed to feel. A lot of people say nines are easy to love, but here's the truth: they're easy to overlook. They nod along, they let you choose, they smile through tension. But inside, they're negotiating an entire peace treaty just to stay connected. So, how do we love them? We wait, not forever, but long enough for their truth to surface. We ask questions that they're not used to being asked. We pause after they say, I don't know, because maybe they do. They just haven't trusted the room yet. We notice when their eyes go distant, when they ghost themselves in real time, and we kindly, gently invite them back. We love them by saying, your presence matters, and so does your perspective. We love them by sticking around when they finally say no. We love them by reminding them that taking up space isn't selfish, it's sacred. Because loving a nine isn't about keeping things calm, it's about helping them remember that they're not here to keep the peace at the cost of their own self and their own presence. They are the peace when they show up whole. All right, so now I invite you to get a pen and paper if you don't already have one handy. Let's just see how much nine energy you're carrying around. This quiz will help you figure out whether type 9 is a strong part of who you are. We'll read 15 statements that reflect the typical thoughts, feelings, and behaviors of a nine according to the Wisdom of the Enneagram by Riso and Hudson. For each one, you can rate yourself on a scale from 1 to 5, with 1 meaning not at all true and 5 meaning very true. Then we'll add up the scores and see where you land. I've copied the scale over to the next two slides so you can keep track of what each number stands for. Now, this isn't a test, this is just an awareness tool. Some of you might score high and feel completely seen. Others might see pieces of themselves in the 9 here and there, but they may resonate more with a different type. Either way, the goal isn't to put you in a box, it's to give you a language for the patterns that already exist inside you. So trust your gut on each statement. Don't be shy. Let's see whether the type 9 is central to how you show up in the world. Number 1, what people seem to like about me is that they feel safe around me. Number 2, I don't mind being around people, and I don't mind being alone. Either way is fine, as long as I'm at peace with myself. Number 3, I've found a certain balance in my life, and I see no reason to mess with it. Number 4, being comfortable in every sense of the word appeals to me a lot. Number 5, I would rather give someone else their way than create a scene. Number 6, I don't exactly know how I do it, but I don't let things get to me. Number 7, I'm pretty easy to please and usually feel that what I have is good enough for me. Number 8, I've been told that I seem distracted and absent minded. The fact is, I understand things, but I just don't want to react to them. Number 9, I don't think I'm particularly stubborn, but people say that I can be hard headed once I make up my mind. Number 10, most people get themselves worked up too easily. I'm much more even keeled. Number 11, you've got to take what life brings, since there's not much you can do about it anyway. Number 12, I can easily see different points of view, and I tend to agree with people more than I disagree with them. Number 13, I believe in emphasizing the positive rather than dwelling on the negatives. Number 14, I have what might be called a philosophy of life that guides me and gives me a great deal of comfort in difficult times. Number 15, during the day, I do everything that needs to be done. But when the day is over, I really know how to relax and take it easy. All right. So add your scores for the 15 statements for type 9. Your result will be between 15 and 75. The following guidelines may help you discover or confirm your personality type. If you scored a 15, you're probably not a withdrawn type, a type 4, 5, or a 9. 16 to 30, you're probably not a type 9. 31 to 45, you most probably have similar challenges as a type 9, and or you have a type 9 parent. 46 to 60, you most likely have a 9 component, which means you go to the 9, your stress or strength, or you have 9 as a wing. 61 to 75, you are most likely a type 9. But you could still be another type if you're thinking too narrowly about the 9. So why do I mention that little caution at the end? Well, it's easy to mistype as a 9, especially if you've been called easygoing or chill your whole life. But being conflict avoidant, it doesn't automatically make you a 9. Neither does liking peace or wanting people to get along or choosing to stay out of the spotlight. Typing as a 9 is not about how low maintenance or agreeable you seem on the outside. It's about what's happening underneath. It's about how much of your energy is going toward avoiding tension, especially tension inside yourself. A lot of types blend in or tone themselves down sometimes. But 9s do it because they're afraid that showing up fully might cost them the connection that they want. So they disappear to survive. And that's a big difference. So let's take a moment to look at common mistyping. 9s are calm, adaptable, and often described as easy to be around, but that doesn't mean that they're easy to type, especially when we mistake behavior for motivation. Now let's start with how 9s might mistype as other types. Nines often mistype as twos, especially if they're kind, supportive, and go out of their way to accommodate others. But the difference is in what they're hoping to protect. Twos are trying to secure love through helpfulness. Nines are trying to secure peace by keeping things smooth and unthreatening. A two says, I'll help you so you won't leave me. A nine says, I'll go along with you so we don't have to argue. Nines may also mistype as fours, especially if they experience emotional depth or feel misunderstood. But fours are drawn to that complexity. Nines are often overwhelmed by it. A four says, the pain is part of my identity. The nine says, the pain is too loud. I need to zone out. Some nines mistype as fives, especially self-preservation nines, who are more introverted, private, and routine driven. But the five pulls back to observe, analyze, and conserve energy. The nine pulls back to stay comfortable and avoid pressure. A five says, let me detach so I can stay competent. The nine says, let me detach so I can stay undisturbed. Now let's flip it. There are types that often mistake themselves for nines. Sixes may mistype as nines, especially if they're conflict averse and tune into group dynamics. But the difference is in what they're trying to manage internally. Sixes are trying to manage anxiety and gain security by scanning for potential threats. Nines are trying to maintain inner peace by minimizing tension and avoiding pressure. A six says, I'm anxious and preparing for the worst. A nine says, I'm fine. Everything's fine. Please don't make me choose. Twos may see themselves as nines, especially if they identify as helpful, relational, and supportive. But the difference is in the source of their people pleasing. Twos are trying to earn love by being needed. Nines are trying to avoid disruption by staying agreeable. A two says, love me for what I give. A nine says, love me for not being a problem. Sevens can also mistype as nines, especially if they're more laid back or optimistic than chaotic. But the difference is in what they're avoiding. Sevens are avoiding emotional pain by shifting attention to pleasure. Nines are avoiding tension and discomfort by shutting down or going numb. A seven says, let's move on to something fun. A nine says, let's ignore it and maybe it'll dissolve. So if you scored high on nine, ask yourself, am I easygoing because I genuinely don't care? Or because I don't want to deal with fallout if I do care? Am I letting go of things because they don't matter? Or because it's exhausting to assert myself? Because being kind, calm, or low conflict doesn't make you a nine. What makes you a nine is the core fear that if you assert yourself, if you show up fully, you'll lose the connection you crave. That's the difference between passivity and protection. And that's where your real type lives. And finally, for those of you still wondering if you might be a nine, even after all of this, perhaps this will help. An essential literary connection for the terminally agreeable. Let me know if any of these titles look familiar. Conflict? I don't know her. Required reading for anyone who's ever smiled through gritted teeth and then gone silent for 3 days. Yes, I have preferences somewhere, a reflection into liking things, but not wanting them enough to argue about it. The I'm good with whatever spiral, a gentle descent into chronic non commitment, where your true desires are replaced with a polite shrug and a vague sense of unease. How to say no without actually saying no, including powerful tools like hesitating, nodding slowly, and hoping someone else changes the subject. The art of ghosting yourself mid-sentence. For the nine who has perfected the 1,000-yard stare halfway through announcing what decision you've just made. Procrastination as a spiritual practice, because if you just wait long enough, maybe the problem will resolve itself, or you'll forget it entirely. Finding your truth after just one more episode, because sometimes your soul's purpose is waiting to be defined in the next episode. You never know. Merge, vanish, repeat. How to absorb literally everyone. The emotional shapeshifter's guide to blending in and then wondering why you're tired all the time. And finally, where do you want to go for dinner? And other existential crises. An exploration of choice paralysis in its purest form. If this is a glimpse of your internal bookshelf, you might be an Enneagram Type 9.